Good morning, a journey through grief, in memory of Loretta Lyman. The funeral service for Loretta Louise Lyman. Funeral services provided by Rabach Newhouse on the 9th of July 2019 at 10 a.m. The location of the memorial service was at Belle Plaine, Iowa. Don Drehos officiated the service. The final resting place was Irving Cemetery at Irving, Iowa, Benton County. In the spirit of true friendship and concern, we are pleased to present you with this volume, Good Morning, A Journey Through Grief. It is our hope that its message will lighten your burden now and will be a source of strength and inspiration in the years ahead. Country Foods, Dennis, Vicky, and all the employees, Belle Plaine Specialty Care, residents and staff, Cole Morgan, Shul, and Zon Radnick, PC, Jennifer L. Zaradnik, Chelsea Savings Bank, directors, officers, and staff, Midwest One Bank, Mindy Atkinson, officers and staff, Rabach Newhouse Funeral and Cremation Service, the Newhouse family and staff, Belle Plaine, Iowa. Something beautiful remains. The tide recedes, but leaves behind bright seashells on the sand. The sun goes down, but gentle warmth still lingers on the land. The music stops, and yet it echoes on in sweet refrains. For every joy that passes, something beautiful remains, unknown. Loretta Louise was born December 28, 1944, to Peter Solomon and Ososima Arcilio Quintana in Honolulu, Hawaii. She met William Bill Lyman while he was stationed in Hawaii. They were married August 1989 at Fort Shafter in Hawaii. Together, the couple moved to Belle Plaine, Iowa in 2001. While in Belle Plaine, Loretta worked for True Value. She was an American Legion Auxiliary member and delivered meals for the community center. As a side note, Bill had mentioned that my mom was the treasurer for a decade, and in spite her not liking to do that position, she always accounted for every expense, and the books were always balanced. Loretta enjoyed spending time at the casino and anywhere that had bingo, and long walks with her dog Tessa. She is survived by her husband, Bill Lyman, sons Ivanhoe, Jesse, David Okuda, Scott, Sean, Chris Lyman, daughter Shayna Okuda, sisters Cecilia Santos, Stephanie Bracciolione, Maria Acosta, Martina Marfel, Susan Gavin, brothers Blaine, Gerald, Gabriel, Martin Quintana. Loretta was preceded in death by her parents and son, Peter Okuda. On grieving, gratitude, and guilt. Let grief do its work, tromp every inch of the sorrow away. Drink every drop of the bitter cup. Draw from memory and hope that all they can offer. To see the things our loved ones have left behind will give us daily pain. The clothes they wore, the letters they wrote, the books they read, the chairs in which they sat, the music they loved, the walks they took, the games they played, and much beside. But what would we be without these reminders? Would we like quickly to break with the past in order to ease our grief? Those who truly love will say that they have found in sorrow a new joy, a joy which only the broken-hearted can know. W. Graham Scroggie. We are constantly encouraged to believe that life can be pain-free, but to live without pain is a myth. To live without pain is to live half alive, without fullness of life. Many of us do not realize that pain and joy run together. When we cut ourselves off from pain, we have unwillingly cut ourselves off from joy as well. Clyde Reed, in Tim Hansel's book, You Gotta Keep Dancing. Suffering itself does not do us in or sabotage the will to live. Usually, we sabotage ourselves by foolishly trying to live our lives in isolation. Without the comfort and love of other human beings, none of us is very strong. Aligned with others who accept us and support us, we can survive most anything. Anne Kaiser Stearns. There is a sacredness in tears. They are not the mark of weakness, but of power. They speak more eloquently than 10,000 tongues. They are messengers of overwhelming grief, of deep contrition, and of unspeakable love. Washington Irving. I have sometimes been wildly, despairingly, acutely miserable, but through it all, I still know quite certainly that just to be alive is a grand thing. Agatha Christie. Introduction. Niccolò Paganini, 1782 to 1840, the Italian composer and musician, is considered by many to be the greatest violinist of all time. Here's an incident out of his life which offers one reason why he is so highly regarded. During a concert before a distinguished audience, a string on his violin suddenly snapped. The audience gasped, but the master musician played on the 3 remaining strings as if nothing had happened. Abruptly, a second string broke. Without missing a note, Paganini played on. Unbelievably, a 3rd string gave way with a sharp crack. For a brief moment, the violinist stopped. The audience was certain that he could not continue. Calmly and confidently, Paganini raised his famous Stradivarius violin high in one hand and announced, "One string and Paganini." Then, with a tremendous energetic skill and the matchless discipline of a gifted artist, Paganini finished the selection on a single string. His performance was done with such matchless perfection, the audience rose in unison, giving Paganini a standing ovation. Like Paganini, there are times in all of our lives when a string snaps. One of those occasions is a time of grief. When a loved one has died, we are left feeling incomplete, damaged, even broken. Yet like Paganini, those who are grieving must simply do the best they can with what they have to work with. Rather than give in or give up, anyone who grieves must find ways to meet life's challenge with wisdom, courage, dignity, and optimism. Only then will the pain of bereavement recede and the happiness of living return. Chapter 1. When you are grieving, frequently asked questions about grief. Whenever you find people, or wherever you find people, there will always be those who are tragic and those who are triumphant. Victor Perpetual. To weep is to make less the depth of grief. William Shakespeare. How long does grief last? This is probably the most common question by the bereaved, because every griever is a unique personality, and there is no single answer to this question. What are the signs of grief? On the emotional level, the bereaved experience some of the following: disbelief, shock, numbness, denial, sadness, anxiety, guilt, depression, anger, loneliness, frustration. The physical symptoms of grief can include tightness of the chest or throat, pain in the heart area, panic attacks, dizziness, trembling. Grievers also report sleep disturbance, either too much or not enough sleeping. All of these emotional and physical symptoms fall within the normal range of response to the loss of a loved one. I feel like I'm going crazy. Is this normal? This is perfectly normal. Will I ever stop crying? Even though it may be difficult to believe, the tears will come to an end. Do all people grieve in the same way? While many aspects of grieving are universal, feelings of sadness, numbness, confusion, depression, there is no one prescribed way to grieve. Birds sing after a storm. Why shouldn't people feel as free to delight in whatever sunlight remains to them? Rose Kennedy. What about men and women? Do they grieve differently? The cultural stereotypes of women and men in grief are inaccurate. Generally, they portray women as being expressive with their grief, while men are the strong and silent type. In reality, the reality is that some men need and want to express and share their feelings, while some women prefer to do their grief work in a more low-key way. Bereavement styles have less to do with gender and more to do with basic character traits. Grieve in ways that are most helpful and healing for you. The holidays are coming. How can I cope with them? It's not only holidays which are difficult because there is an empty chair, but also anniversaries, birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, and so on. Here are some effective ways to manage these special days. Plan ahead. How will you spend the day? With whom? Talk about your deceased loved one. This will let others know you want to hear his or her name and to talk about this individual. Establish character priorities. Decide what you want to do, how you wish to celebrate, and whom you wish to be with. Follow your instincts. Express your feelings. If the holidays make you more weepy, then cry. Value your memories. You have love, and the price of losing a loved one is pain. Cherish the time you had together and value precious memories which can never be taken away from you. Reach out to others. Take the focus off yourself and your pain by volunteering to help others. Avoid isolating yourself in grief. Just because you are in pain, don't cut yourself off from others. Stay in touch. Keep communication open with family, friends, and colleagues. Accept invitations for social events, even if you don't feel like it. Be patient with yourself. A loss to death inflicts a deep wound, but the wound will heal. I feel very angry. Why is this? And what can I do with the anger? It is not unusual to feel angry. Sometimes the anger is directed at the deceased loved one, sometimes toward other family members, sometimes at medical staff or others. The anger will subside, but you can take the edge off it through exercise, physical activities such as housework or gardening, or by talking about the angry feelings. We inherit from our ancestors gifts so often taken for granted. Each of us contains within this inheritance of soul. We are links between the ages, containing past and present expectations, sacred memories, and future promise. Edward Selner. What helps the grieving process? Even though grievers often feel helpless, there are important steps and actions they can take to make the grieving process flow more smoothly and toward a more rapid resolution. Here are some ways to cope with pain of loss. Seek out supportive people. Join a support group. Express your feelings. Take care of your health. I have an opportunity to relocate. Would this be good for me? After a death, the temptation to make changes can be acute. Such changes can include selling off one's home, taking a new position, making a career change. Unless there is some pressing reason for the change, a good rule is to postpone any major change for at least 1 year following the loss. Grief authority Earl Grolman advises, you may be tempted to make a radical change in your life, to sell your house and to move someplace different, to make a fresh start, away from your familiar home and all the painful memories. Wait a while. The time is not right for major decisions. Your judgment is still uncertain. You are still in horrible pain. Getting used to a new life takes time, thought, and patience. Learn the art of patience. Apply discipline to your thoughts when they become anxious over the outcome of a goal. Impatience breeds anxiety, fear, discouragement, and failure. Patience creates confidence, decisiveness, and a rational outlook, which eventually leads to success. When is mourning finished? Mourning is successfully completed when the tasks of grief are complete. In this book, Grief Counseling and Grief Therapy, J. William Worden identifies the 4 tasks of grieving: to accept the reality of the loss, number 2, to experience the pain of the grief, number 3, to adjust to an environment in which the deceased is missing, number 4, to withdraw emotional energy and reinvest it in another relationship. For those who seek a clear sign that their grieving is coming to completion, Dr. Worden offers this insight. One benchmark of the completed grief reaction is when a person is able to think of the deceased without pain. There is always a sense of sadness when you think of someone that you have loved and lost, but it is a different kind of sadness. It lacks the wrenching quality it previously had. One can think of the deceased without physical manifestations, such as an intense crying or feelings of tightness in the chest. Also, mourning is finished when a person can reinvest his or her emotions back into life and in the living.